Hello, welcome back to the You Should Crypto channel, the channel where you learn about crypto to make better crypto investments. This is the first video in which I show my face, and I decided to show my face because since crypto is a touchy subject and there are a lot of scams in the space, I figured you would like to know who I am. But anyways, today we are going to answer the question, are meme coins just jokes or can they be held long term? So before answering that question, we first need to understand what meme coins are. Meme coins are cryptocurrencies inspired by internet culture rather than technical innovation. So Bitcoin is not a meme coin because it is driven by technology. On the other hand, Dog with Hat is a meme coin because it is only driven by internet culture and it does not bring any technical innovation to the space. But why are meme coins important and why are they the subject today? Well, meme coins are on the rise. They are more and more looked up on the internet and they take more and more space on social media. Meme coins also attract the younger generation. So as kids grow up and get introduced to the crypto space, they are more likely to get introduced with meme coins than technical cryptos. And just to tell you how important meme coins have become, the 8th largest crypto by market capitalization is a meme coin. That meme coin is Dogecoin, and as of today, it is worth $34 billion. But it doesn't stop there. The total market capitalization of meme coins is 75 billion. So all the meme coins combined are worth 75 billion. That is equal to the GDP of a country like Luxembourg. So meme coins aren't just jokes anymore. Now, is there an opportunity to take? Or should you pass on this? Because you will see that it is not for everyone. To give you my experience on this, I did take a chance on this. And I did quite well because I paid the microphone I'm recording this video with the money I made with meme coins. And by the way, thanks to that, I improved the audio quality for you. So after this video, you will know if meme coins are made for you or not. Now, most people are scared of meme coins. And so I am going to show you the main concerns people have about meme coins. So essentially, the root cause of this fear is that people do not want to lose money. Who wants to lose money, right? But this fear splits into multiple categories. And those are volatility, no perceived intrinsic value, pump and dumps, the gambling reputation meme coins have, and the fact that meme coins heavily rely on hype. But first things first, let's dive into volatility. So what is volatility? Basically, volatility is how fast the price moves over time. So here is an example for you to understand. You can see that the chart on the left is more stable than the chart on the right. The chart on the right has spikes and has big candles. They move up and down very fast. Now, why is this scary to people and maybe to you? Well, it is scary because as you see your crypto balance going up and down very fast, you think that if it stays on the low, you're gonna lose your money. And volatile coins will sometimes put your balance at minus 50%. But this is all unrealized loss. And so you haven't lost anything until you sold. And so people fear volatility because they mistake unrealized loss with actual loss. But in reality, this just shows that you have a short-term vision. Volatility is a positive force. It brings attention to the asset because when there is volatility, there are opportunities to place trades. It attracts speculative capital that builds momentum, and most importantly, it creates a transfer from the weak hands to the strong hands. Because people who hold for the long term are not scared, they won't sell their coins when their portfolio is down, and on top of this, they might buy more. And so who are they going to buy from? The weak hands. The people with a short-term vision. And so the people with a short-term vision will sell at a loss. The people with a long-term vision will buy from the weak hands. And so eventually all the coins will end up with people with strong hands. Those people with strong hands that won't sell the coins and therefore increase the scarcity of the asset, which will in turn pump the price up. So volatility is actually positive. But as an asset matures, well, eventually volatility averages out. So if you're positioned on the right project, you shouldn't be scared about volatility. Next, people fear the fact that meme coins have no intrinsic value. And basically, intrinsic value can be translated in the utility of the coin. So on the left, we have Solana. It has intrinsic value because it generates revenue and it is a base layer for people to build application on the blockchain. And on the right, we have the Pepe meme coin, which seemingly has no utility. But in reality, meme coins do have intrinsic value, but it is hard to measure. So what are those? Well, meme coins are driven by cultural force. So meme coins are essentially a materialization of a cultural phenomenon. So they're not tied to nothing. They're actually tied to culture, and culture is strong. You see it with religions, for example. People who go to church fund the church because they are linked with the culture, which is their religion. And so even if it's not primarily meant to do that, it creates an economic cycle, which its base layer is the religion, the culture, and this is the same for meme coins. Next, meme coin creates social link. Because meme coins are community driven, well, this makes sense. And obviously, and this might be the biggest value proposition meme coins have, is that it gives hope of potential gains. And big potential gains. But in reality, all those characteristics are not just in meme coins. They are also part of Bitcoin. Bitcoin has become a cultural force with the narrative of decentralization and being free. It creates social link because it is a monetary system, so it is by default meant to be social. And people want to hold Bitcoin long term to get the upside. We see people making predictions of Bitcoin going to 150k. 500k or even a million a coin. And so truthfully, Bitcoin is just a meme coin with a tech layer underneath it. Now the next thing people are afraid of are pumps and dumps. Pump and dumps are organized operations designed to trap investors, and you absolutely want to avoid them if you do not want to lose money. So on the chart on the right, you have an example of what a pump and dump looks like on a chart. And by the way, this is illegal. But how does it work? Well, first of all, the ones that organize the pump and dump choose a coin with low liquidity. Then they create an initial pump by buying that specific coin at the same time. So this makes the price spike. Then beginners or people who are not aware buy later when the price is spiking. But what later investors do not know is that the people who initially bought are dumping the coin now. And so because early investors are taking profit and therefore selling, the price crashes. This creates panic sales, and investors who bought late are now losing money. Then the chart goes back to normal, benefiting the insiders of the movement and making everyone else lose. Now, how to avoid pump and dumps? Well, I am going to give you some red flags so you can avoid them. First of all, avoid low liquidity tokens, because if you suffer in pump and dump and the price goes back to normal and there is no liquidity left after the operation, well, you will just be stuck and you won't be able to sell your worthless tokens. Now next, avoid small tokens with low activity, and that is because the chart of small tokens is easier to manipulate than bigger ones. So if you want to reduce the chance of suffering such a tag, well, stick to notable coins. And lastly, avoid small exchanges. This will help you avoid crappy projects, but pump and dumps are totally avoidable if you do things right and you avoid the bad coins. The next concern people have is that meme coins rely on hype. So what is hype? Well, hype is intense promotion, excitement, or publicity surrounding an idea. And so that fear comes from the fact that if the hype dies, well, you're just gonna have a chart that looks like this, a dying coin that only trends down to zero. But what people do not understand is that there is a social aspect to it, and so you should be looking at what makes a good marketing campaign. If you can spot the flaws in the marketing campaigns of meme coin creators, you will be in a better spot to understand what to buy, what not to buy, when to exit and when to enter. You should also be looking at how many people are creating content about the coin. Because meme coins rely on hype and relevancy, you need people in the space to constantly create content about the coin. The coin has to be talked about. But most people don't do that because they treat meme coins the same way as they do for more by-the-book projects. Next, you have to see if the storytelling of the coin is solid. If you look at the mission of the coin, its message, and you do not adhere to it, that's a first red flag. The story the coin holds has to have the potential to reach a broad audience. And so in reality, it all comes down to marketing. Investing in memes requires marketing skills, and that is something most people do not understand. Now, the main critique about meme coins is that meme coins are seen as gambling vehicles, and so meme coins are seen as risky, but they don't have to be as risky for everyone. For a beginner, it might be gambling, but for an experienced trader, it is informed speculation. But we have to clarify what gambling is. Gambling is risking money on an uncertain outcome where luck plays a major role in hopes of potential gains. And the key point of that definition is that gambling is tied to luck, hazard, and chance. But if you get rid of the luck, hazard, and chance, well, it becomes informed speculation, which is risking money based on research, analysis, and data-driven reasoning in hopes of potential gains. And this is very different because you put the odds in your favor here. You effectively reduce the luck side by doing research and narrowing down your options to the ones who only have good potential of winning. So instead of gambling, you want to do informed speculation. And to do so with meme coins, you need to differentiate a good marketing campaign from a bad one. You need to understand human behavior because the movements on the charts are a reflection of the thoughts of people. You need to learn tokenomics because some tokens are doomed to fail from the start. For example, if you have an expandable supply, well, you're gonna have inflation. And so by default, if you hold the coin and the demand stays the same, you're gonna lose money. You need to know who the leading figures are, because those are the ones who mainly push the coin up. You need to know if they have integrity, because if they start selling their bags and everyone knows it, the coin is gonna tank. You also need to look at on-chain metrics, and there are a lot of other things. The list goes on and on. Now, I am going to give you actionable takeaways so you can better take advantage of meme coins. If so far you learned things with this video, I would recommend you subscribe. You will learn things about crypto and it will translate into better investments. So make sure you don't miss out on my next videos. But anyways, let's continue. So, should you invest or not in meme coins? First of all, one thing you should consider is that meme coins are very risky, and there are not a lot of meme coins who survive long term. So you have to do your own extensive research before buying into anything. But the main thing you should be worried about are rug pulls and scams, volatility, and bad tokenomics. So first thing first, rug pull and scams, because some coins are trapped, and you can see on the chart I'm showing you right now that some coins go up and straight go down and stay down forever. Because founders create the coin, they hold the majority of the supply, and when the price goes up, they sell everything, leaving everyone in the dust. The price goes to zero and you lost your money. Or investor can also rug pull you by taking the liquidity out of the pool. So essentially, to buy the meme coin, you give, let's say, Solana. You will give your Solana to the founder, and the founder will give you the meme coin in exchange. And so the Solana will be part of the liquidity pool for people who want to sell the meme coin. The problem is, on some coins, the insiders can take the liquidity pool and run out with the money. And so if you want to sell the coin and the founders run out with the liquidity, you cannot sell the meme coin and you are stuck with a worthless coin. And to avoid that, it is fairly simple. You just do not go on new coins. This is just not a good bet. You have the potential to become a millionaire by investing $1,000, but chances are you're gonna spend more than $1 million before having the chance to invest in a coin that will actually make you $1 million. Next is volatility, and I said that volatility is not a risk, and this is just to remind you that volatility is not a risk in itself. It is a risk when you have a short-term vision, but it is more scary than anything else if you invested in the right coin. Because the reality is, meme coins are highly volatile because they are small, not because they are necessarily desirable. And so if the fundamentals of the coin are right, you shouldn't be worried. But if the fundamentals of the coin are not right, you should be worried about volatility. And so just to give you an example, I am going to show you the chart of Dogecoin and Pepecoin. And you can see that if you did a DCA along all the time frame of the chart, you would actually be break even. So with the right coins, volatility is not a problem. You just have to know when to enter and when to exit. Now, the next thing you should consider is tokenomics. So I already used that word, but concretely, what is tokenomics? Well, it is the monetary policy of the coin. The main thing you should be considering while looking at tokenomics is liquidity lock, vesting schedule, token distribution, and inflation. But I have a video on this channel covering the topic, so if you want to learn about tokenomics, go watch that video. Alright, so how to find the right meme coin? I am going to give you the key characteristics you should be looking for, and they divide in 4 categories. First is the price action, second is the space healthiness, third is the pushing force, and fourth is the meme quality. Starting with the price action, your meme coin should have positive momentum, more buyers than sellers, and it should be easy to buy. Obviously, if you want as many people as possible to buy the coin so the price goes up, you want to make sure that it is easy to buy, so there is a lower barrier to entry. Second is the space healthiness. You want to know if the token has a good distribution. One thing you want to avoid is large wallets who can dump their tokens and crash the price. And this can be whales but also founders. You want a holder rate that is increasing, and this is because meme coins are community driven, and so you want as many people as possible to hold the coin because it creates a network effect. And you also want to see a big perceived upside on social media. If people are saying that the coin is going to zero, that's not good publicity and it's not a good outlook for the future. Now, third, the pushing force. You should absolutely know who the KOLs are. What is a KOL? Well, it is a key opinion leader. And so you want to know who is the most important figure in the space, because if one day he stops promoting the coin or does a 180 and sells all his bags, your token is gonna crash. And so you want to know who they are, because if they do not have integrity, you have a big risk that your coin will eventually crash because of them. You want your coin to be highly talked about, and you want high community participation, because meme coins are very social, you want the community to engage. Fourth, we have the meme quality. You want the message, the storytelling of the meme coin to be solid, and it has to deeply appeal to people. to the broad audience. You want a fresh narrative because things that did not work or have worked have proven not to be that great. And so you want something fresh to give you a new chance. And ideally, because meme coins are cultural, you want the phenomenon to be existing outside crypto. So basically, to give you an example, basketball is a culture, and so you could create a meme coin based on the culture of basketball, but you're not going to do it the other way around. You're not going to create a meme coin called basketball and then create the sport basketball because you need a culture. So if the meme coin is tied to a culture that exists in the real world, that is a bonus. Now let me give you a good example of a good meme coin, or at least one that I thought was decent. And as I talked in the start of this video, that meme coin is SPX 6900. So SPX has a healthy chart, it is easy to buy as you can find it on the most reputable exchanges. It is fully vested, so there is no inflation. There is a big perceived upside in the community, as you can see on the post right here. The key opinion leaders are very vocal and they create content about the coin every day, and the coin has a strong mission. It is called SPX 6900 because they want to do a 69 to the S&P 500. Basically, they want to flip the S&P 500, which I think won't happen, but it is a fun thing to think, and it gives an objective to the community, and so it can only push the price higher. Now, I am not saying you should buy it. I am in no way telling you to buy a meme coin. This is purely educational, but this will help make better decision if you do decide to buy meme coins. The goal of my channel is to increase your crypto gains, and so I strongly recommend you subscribe to this channel because this will help you a lot.